Hey guys, what's going on? Justin Fuller here, and I'm outside of this 2021 Honda Passport. Maybe if you were driving in the 90s, you might recognize the name, but I doubt you would recognize the car or what's inside of it now. Let's check out what Honda's calling its most rugged SUV now. Alright guys, so here I am outside of the engine bay of this 2021 Honda Passport. So let's talk about what's underneath the hood. So I'm going to bring you on in here and show you. You've got a 3.5 liter V6 engine. Now this is putting out 280 horsepower to your wheels. Now you've got a 9-speed transmission working with this system right here. So to just talk you through what's under here, you can see I've got a nice engine cover right here. I've got my fuse box over here. My windshield wiper fluid is here. Of course, my air box is right here. I've got a CPU, another air, and then right tucked back behind her, if you can see it, I've actually got the connections to my battery, so you can see I can get to the positive, but getting to that negative is gonna be a little bit harder. So if you needed to jump the car, it is gonna be a little bit more difficult. You are gonna have to take this piece off. Since we're talking about what's underneath the hood, I'm gonna go ahead and throw up a comparison so you can check out and see a couple different SUVs that this car would normally compete against, and that way you have a general understanding for, hey, where does this car really stand? Now, when it comes to safety, you have a few things working for you in this vehicle. It does offer Honda sensing, which we're gonna walk around here in just a second, but on top of that, you got 6 airbags. So as you move towards the car, I want to point out that you have 2 front airbags, 2 side airbags, and 2 full curtain airbags that run the front and back glass of the car. Now this car is set up with ACE body structure, meaning that it's designed to have crumple zones to where it'll break down in certain areas, it'll drop the engine down, so that way it doesn't get pushed up into the cabin. Now as we move around to the front of the car, I want to point out 2 different things. One would be right behind the logo on the car. This is where the radar is going to live, right? So if you're using some of these corrective driving features, things like your collision mitigate braking system where it'll brake before you hit another car, and so, you know, my adaptive cruise control where it'll detect cars and slow and speed me down to keep that general spacing, that's going to use this radar. Now additionally, you're going to be using this camera that's right up here, and you can see there's a trapezoid cut out right up there, so that's where the camera is living, right? So this is going to be part of that lane keep assist program to help you keep you centered in your lanes. That's going to use both of these combined, and then your road departure mitigation, which will help you from drifting off the side of the road. So when it comes to safety, you got a lot of things working for you in this car. Other than it just being a rugged Honda, you've got all these different safety settings and features that we're going to go over in a minute when we hop inside the car. Now as we walk the outside of the car, I want to point out a couple different features. One, it of course does have body colored door handles and of course the mirrors, and the mirrors do have the turn indicators in them. Now down below, you've got 20-inch alloy wheels with a nice smoked graphite look to them. So you've got a good solid looking wheel here on this car, so it's definitely aesthetically pleasing. Now you do have daytime running lights that are LED, and then you have your standard halogen beam setup for your headlights, and then this car does come with fog lights, so be aware that you do have that full setup. Now as you move around here, you'll notice you kind of have that honeycomb finish to the grille, which is kind of indicative of what you would see on a Ridgeline, and then of course you have the nice large emblem right here. Now as we continue to move around this side of the car, I'll just point out that once again, you can see that you have those turn indicators right here, and these are breakaway mirrors, so you don't have to worry about getting hit in a grocery, you know, if you're parking somewhere and something bumps it, or if you're out camping and you catch a branch. Now, up top, I will point out that you do have a moonroof on this vehicle, so that's part of getting the EXL model. It does not offer the roof rails, but that is something that you can add to the car. Now, as we back away from the car, I will point out that you'll notice the back half is tinted from the manufacturer, and as you can see through the front windows, they are not. So depending on the state you live in, they allow different amounts of tint or no tint at all, so that's why you're always going to find these cars tinted on the back, but not the front. So as we move around to the back of the car, I will point out that you have a nice spoiler setup here, and it does have a brake light in it. So not only do you have the indicator up high, but you're also gonna have brake light, you know, setups down below. And then as we look down on the car, you do have the dual chrome tipped exhaust that you can see with the reflectors right above it. So you can get a good feel for what the back end of this car is. It's a little bit more sporty looking when it comes to SUVs. Now here we are at the back end of the vehicle. So it does have a power tailgate, which I have flipped up right now, which you can walk up and touch with your hand, or you can always use the key fob if you want to go ahead and pop it open and close it. Now as we move in, I will point out that you have 41 cubic square feet from the back seat on into this vehicle. So you could fit up to 15 carry-on bags. Why on earth you would need to do that? I have no idea. But do you have the ability to? Absolutely. Now when we're looking at the back, you can see that I have these quick flip downs, and if I flip these down, it's gonna give me the ability to, I believe, throw in, that's now 78 cubic feet, which you can fit 41 different carry-on bags. So maybe if you were moving a massive family, you could do it, but hey, what a fun fact to know just to share, right? So underneath here, I do have some hidden storage. So you can see the hidden storage right here, and I like that they've done this, and then I can flip it back and go one more, and this is where my spare lives. Now what I like about this is that they offer the spare, but they've also given me this additional space that I could use for whether it be an air pump, or maybe I want to install my own sub there, right? So they've given me some space to work with as far as what I can do in the back, right? And then they've got this funnel right here, which I'm gonna show you exactly what that funnel does here momentarily. Now, as we fold this back over, I will point out that you do have a power outlet back here. And of course, you do have some cubby holes that you can store stuff so that way it doesn't rock and roll around, right? So let's move around to the side and talk about the gas cap. So let's talk about this funnel. It's not just for the world's tiniest and most cute beer bong. No, it is not. It actually does serve a purpose. So let's talk about what that purpose is. So as you can see right here, when I pop open the gas cap, you'll notice that I don't have like a nozzle, right? But there's a valve right here that holds it open. So if I needed to, I could put this in if I ran out of gas and be able to pour gas in, because chances are I probably don't have a gas can with me and I'm gonna be using a water bottle or whatever I could come up with, right? So that's the function of this in case you ever need it, just so you have a good understanding of how it works. So before we leave the back end of this car, there is one thing I wanna point out. While I can open up the back using my key fob, and that's fantastic, and I can walk up and just touch it with my hand, it'll open too. The one thing I feel like they dropped the ball on here is they're not giving you the ability to set an alternate height for this. So if you're gonna put this in your garage, you just gotta work with what they give you. They're not giving you the ability like you would find in the Odyssey and maybe in the Passport, or excuse me, in the Pilot, to set that custom height that you might want. So just something to note if you're looking at this vehicle and comparing it to one of those others. All right, guys, so here I am in the second row of this Honda Passport, and I can let you know that you actually have quite a bit of room here, right? So I have the seat pushed all the way back, and as a 6-footer, I can fit behind this comfortably and know that I can take a long trip and not have to worry about that. Now, as we look around in the car, I will point out that, of course, you do have the sunshades here. And as we look down, I, of course, have places to put drinks, and I have places to store stuff away. And as we come into the car, I'll talk about this EXL, because, of course, it does have leather. So, right, the interior, you've got perforation right down the center, and then I've got a black interior on this specific model, right? So leather here, leather across here, and then leather on my center console with the cup holders here. Now, as I move into the center, I will point out that, of course, you do have air vents back here, so you don't have to worry about that. And then I do have 2 USBs stored right down here. They're 2.5 amps, so I will be able to charge in case I'm a passenger taking a long trip. So as we start to head into the front row of this vehicle, I want to point out and talk about the seating arrangement up here. So as you look into this car, you, of course, have powered seats on your driver's side, which gives you lower lumbar support and all the normal adjustments. And then on the other side, you're going to have a 4-way powered seat, meaning I can adjust it frontwards and backwards, and I can adjust that backrest. So you're not going to be able to take that seat up and down, so just be aware of that. It's not something Honda typically offers, so you're not going to find it in a lot of their vehicles. All right, so when it comes to the easy access buttons, I want to point out a couple things. First would be your gas door, so I can pop that open here, and then my tailgate is easily accessible right here on the door. And then right here I have access to my hood, and then my emergency brake is a kick pedal, meaning if I want to set it, I press the pedal, it holds, and then to release it, pop it, and it pops loose. Now, when it comes to the interior of the car, I think Honda has nailed this part. They've got it a very simplistic setup, so there's not an overwhelming amount of buttons and knobs everywhere, right? So it makes it a little bit easier to understand and pick up as you're moving through the car. So this is one thing I really like that Honda does as far as the ergonomics of the car. So let's walk you through the dash and kind of explain what the buttons and knobs do. So as I look at the left side of the dash, I want to talk about these 3 buttons right down low first. So the first one you're going to see right here, if I turn on that LED, that's going to be my road departure mitigation, meaning if I start to drive off the shoulder of the road, it's going to give me an audible alert and start to shake the wheel to let me know, hey, you're about to drive off the road. Now above that is my collision mitigation braking system. So this one is where I was mentioning earlier, where it uses that camera that sits right up top, and then down in the grille it has the radar to detect cars in front of it. So this way, if it's looking like I'm gonna hit another car, it'll actually start to apply the brakes to help prevent that accident. So that's what collision mitigation braking is. And this is always on and running unless I press and hold. And now it's off. So you can see that it takes a while for it to turn on and off, so you're not gonna accidentally bump this and turn it off. Now sitting next to that is my vehicle stability assist. This works with my traction control. So in the event that I go into a skid, it's gonna transfer power to whichever wheel is getting better traction. Now sitting above that, I have my mirror controls, right? So I've got a left and a right button, and then I've got this knob right here, which is nice and easy to understand. Now, one thing that Honda does that's really cool here is if I have this flipped all the way over to the left or all the way to the right, what it's gonna do is it's gonna adjust my mirror down when I throw it in reverse. So I'm gonna flip it over to the left since I already have it in reverse and show you, it throws my mirror down for me. And if I switch it over to the right side, I don't know if you can catch that, but it flipped it down for me. Now, if I don't want it to flip it down at all, I can put it right here in the middle, and that way it won't flip any of the mirrors down, and I can just work off what I'm used to, right? Now, sitting next to that is gonna be your econ button. So when I engage this button, you're gonna see a green leaf appear up here, right? So you can see that green leaf that's flashing on and off. Now, what that is it's gonna improve the gas mileage of the car, but in doing so, you're gonna give up a couple things. The AC unit isn't gonna blow quite as hard, very minimal, but it is noticeable. And then your accelerator, you're not gonna give as much go off the pedal like if you gas it at a stoplight. So you're gonna give up a little bit of the power and a little bit of the AC power, but you're gonna get better gas mileage. For most people that are conservative drivers, you could leave this on all the time and never know the difference. If you're a little bit more get up and go person, maybe you turn it on and off as you want, right? So before we move to the rest of the dash, I will point out that this car does have memory seating. So to do so, all I would do is press my set button, get my seat adjusted, and then press 1 to store it, right? and that will connect up actually with your key. So on the back of your key, there's a sticker right here, but right about right there, it would say driver 1 or driver 2. So remember that you can correlate these. You can also correlate this with the door locks and some of the additional features in the car. Now, once again, when it comes to the steering wheel, I like that this is a little bit more of a simplistic look, right? So I don't have an overwhelming amount of buttons and knobs on both sides. So this makes it a little bit easier to use. So on your left side is gonna be some infotainment stuff, and as far as working through the screen up here, right? So I've got my volume controls here, my Bluetooth controls, so to answer call, to hang up a call, and then voice command. Now this voice command button is also gonna work for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so just be aware of that. It does give you some voice functioning with them as far as pulling up navigation, sending text, and doing different things like that, right? Now this home button is gonna pull up this screen that you see right here. So let's jump into this screen. So when we jump into this screen, I just wanna show you that I've got quite a few different things in this menu right here. So whether I wanna pull up a trip computer with all of that information, I wanna hop into my Bluetooth settings and, you know, check contacts, get recent calls, that sort of thing. Maybe I wanna move down and go to whatever I've been listening to recently, right? So if I turn on the audio, right, it's gonna pull up and show me the radio, and that way I can jump between my favorites just by touching the steering wheel, or I can press up and down to jump between any of my sources, right? So whether I wanna jump through any of these different options, I have that available to me, right? So it makes it a lot easier to use. So I'm gonna jump back over to this home screen, and let's go back down beyond audio to maintenance. Now for the maintenance, you can get your tire pressure. And what I like they've done here is they've given you the tire pressure on each wheel, so you don't have to go figuring out and checking each wheel to figure it out. It's gonna do some of that work for you. If I back out of that, your oil life is set up to where when it gets down to 15%, it's gonna be an audible alert and an alert with a code here, and it'll let you know A1, A2, or B1 or B2. Honda's been doing this for years, but you can easily check online or pull up your manual, and it'll let you know exactly what the dealership's gonna recommend to you. So that way, if you feel like you're going into the dealership or going into a Jiffy Lube or wherever it may be, and you feel like you're getting oversold, you can always check out the recommended maintenance and know before you go in, so you have a better understanding of what to expect when you get there, right? So as I continue to move down this, you've got some settings here. So this is where I can arrange apps, and I can turn the tachometer on and off. So just kind of nice if you want to customize this a little bit, you know, and pick which apps go where, right? So easy enough to understand as far as the left side of the steering wheel and the menu that I can control up there with it. Now on the right side is going to be part of my Honda sensing features. So if I press this main button, you're going to see LKAS and ACC pop on, right? So you can see them right there. Now that stands for Adaptive Cruise Control and Lane Keep Assist. Now Lane Keep Assist is using this button right here. When I press this button, you're gonna see some dotted lines appear up here, right? So you can probably see them flashing at you. Now, when I'm going over 45 miles an hour, what it's gonna do is it's gonna detect the lines on the road using that camera up top and it's gonna help keep me centered. So if I start to drift to the left or the right, it'll keep me centered in my lane, right? If I use my blinker, it's gonna let me go ahead and hop over. But if you're one of those people who doesn't use your blinker, this is probably not gonna be your friend. Now, the other one is Adaptive Cruise Control, which works from here. So I wanna start you off by letting you know you do have a classic cruise control. If you press this button and hold, it will flip over and say cruise mode selected. I've now flipped to just a classic cruise control. If I press that same button again, now I'm back to adaptive cruise control. The difference is adaptive cruise control is gonna allow you to set the distance you keep between the car in front of you using that button as you tap it. As you see more boxes appear, it's gonna keep more spacing between you and the car in front of you once you've set your speed. So that's the difference between the two. Now on the back side of the steering wheel, you'll notice you do have paddle shifters here, so I can upshift and I can downshift the car. This just gives me a little bit more control over the car when I'm driving it. So if you want a little bit more performance-based feel, know that you have that ability. Now on the left side, you are gonna have your light controls. So I have auto on-off headlights I can set, and then of course my fog lights that I can turn on and off. And then on the right side, I have my windshield wipers, pull down for the front, and then to control the back windshield wipers, I have this tab right here. All right, guys, so let's talk about the touchscreen and some of the functionality that this vehicle offers with it, right? So as you can see right here, I have a home screen pulled up that I can easily swipe through and get to any of my different menu options. Now I'm gonna walk you through these quickly, so I don't wanna take up too much of your time and overwhelm you, but let's just talk about what they are, right? So as far as accessing my phone, I have this ability right here once I've connected up. I currently have my phone connected up via Android Auto, which you can see lit up right there. So I can select that and it'll hop over to that menu, right? So from that menu, if I press this button right here, it'll give me all my different options. So from here, I have access to things like Waze, Google Maps. If I was an Apple user, I would have Apple Maps, right? And then of course, it just gives you access to podcasts, any of your music options. So if I have music stored in my phone, or if I want to use Spotify, and then I have access to additional features here, right? So I don't have a ton of features on here, but what I'll do is I'll throw up on the screen some of the most, the 15 most popular, probably apps that you would see or maybe use, so that you can get a general understanding for, hey, if I want to use this, what all access do I have? Right? So I'll throw that up on the screen now, take a look, and that way you can kind of get a feel for, hey, what all can I do with this connectivity that I have? Now, while we're doing that and you're looking at this screen, know that you have some voice command options, right? So I can control from over here or off the steering wheel where I pointed out earlier to control some of this, right? So it's really cool that it'll do that as far as making phone calls, sending texts, pulling up your navigation, all those different options, right? So Apple CarPlay I have sitting right next to it so you can see, right? So my trip computer, I can just pull up a general sit here, which you can see trip A, trip B, any of that info, generally easy to understand, and just in a secondary place I can access it. I do have FM. I won't talk much about that other than I do have HD radio stations, meaning that when I hop into one, I do have the ability to look through those stations and select either one, right? So just know that you have that available to you in this car. Now, Bluetooth audio, obviously, if you connect it up via Bluetooth, this would give you the ability to access that. Now, right now I'm using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, so it's not gonna give me that ability because I'm connecting through the car a different way. Now, the SMS text function is cool. It'll read text aloud to you and then allow you to respond back, right? So if I connected up my phone via this way, it would allow me that option, right? But through Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, I have a lot of that same options. It'll tell me my text will read aloud and allow me to respond via voice command. Now, as I scroll over, you do have 90 days of SiriusXM satellite radio, so know that you have that ability to take advantage of, and then afterwards, I'm sure you could work something out with the fine folks of XM if you would like. Know that you can haggle, right? So as I continue to move, USBs, I've got that USB that you saw. If you haven't seen it, it's actually sitting right down here, so I'll kind of point it out there. My USB is sitting right here, and then I do have a secondary one, which is in the center console, which let me flip this down a little bit more, which is actually sitting right in here. So inside of here, I've got a USB, and then I've got a power outlet. So just know that you have those in here, along with that USB and power outlet that is right down there. So let's flip back over to the screen here. All right, so while we're looking at this, I do have an aux input. So if you want to use the 9mm jack to plug in like, you know, an MP3 player or something, you could do that absolutely. AM, not going to mention that. It's just like FM. System updates, exactly what you think. As far as when I'm listening to music, I do have the ability to store music to the car, which is kind of cool. So I could plug in a USB and then pull that music off of it onto the car. So that's how you would take advantage of that feature, right? Now my clock is just going to pull up a general wallpaper and clock, which I can adjust that and change it, and I can add my own, you know, face, whether I want to change the face of the clock or add my own custom background. So know that you have the ability to customize this a little bit more. Now, moving back past that, social playlist is cool. You will, of course, need to download the social playlist app, which is actually called Cabin Talk. So don't let me fool you there. Let me see if I can find it here real quick just to show you kind of what it looks like here. So, all right, on my phone, Cabin Talk, that's what the app looks like right there. I can select it, open it up, and then I would have the ability to connect to the car, right? Once I've connected up via the car, it'll allow me to add songs to a playlist while others all add to a playlist additionally too. So this way we can listen to a shared collective playlist for all of us, right? So a really cool idea that they do as far as this vehicle goes. Now, the last one is Honda Link, right? So the first time you connect up your phone via Bluetooth, it's gonna ask you, hey, would you like to set up to where if the airbags deploy, Honda can call you. If you don't answer, they'll call 911 for you. Absolutely, I recommend setting that up. It's 100% free, take advantage of it. Now, past that, Honda does offer some subscription-based things like being able to start the car from your phone or being able to control the door locks from your phone. So there's some different options, and you can check it out at hondalink.com. Now, with that said, know that some of those are subscription-based. They will give you those options for a trial period, but if you wanted to keep them, you are gonna need to pay. So just know that you have the ability to check that out and see kind of what they offer ahead of time. Now, looking down, I'll just quickly point out that you do have a tri-zone air control system right here. So I can turn it on, I can control it all synced together with the sync button, I can unsync it and start adjusting things separately of each other and jump into the rear settings too, right? So easy enough to understand as far as what I can do in this vehicle and how it works. I've got my defrost controls right here, and then I've got heated seats in this vehicle, which are right here. And then down below, I've got a nice rubber mat finish, which you can't see probably that well, to be able to store my phone, which is actually nice and big. I have a Google Pixel and it'll fit there, so if you had the larger iPhone, you would be good to go too while it's plugged in, which is always a catch to that, right? And then I've got the USB plug and of course the power outlet right there also. Now, when it comes to the shifter, this is probably the thing that gets the weirdest looks when you're showing a car like this off. It doesn't have a classic shifter that you grab and move. I like that though, because it creates all this space through here, right? So I just feel like I have more space to use, right? And what's cool about this is that, you know, it throws on an LED and lets me know whenever I have it in any of these different options here. Now, below these options, you'll see that it does offer a snow option and a normal one, right? And when you throw these on, it'll throw up an LED in the dash, right? And all this is letting you know is that it's gonna offset the shifting points to counter for snow. That way you're not getting as much slippage when you're driving it around, or I can flip over to normal if I'm just driving in normal conditions. Now, below that button is the idle start stop here, right? So what this is set up is if this is turned on, what it allows me to do is when I come to a complete stop, I'm sitting at a light, it can turn off the engine of the car, but continue to allow the AC and the technology in the car to continue to work. I'm not a huge fan of this. I find that it's a little bit clunky and it's always has that lag when you turn it back on and you're going. But know that if you want to turn it off, every time you get in the car, you're gonna have to press and turn this button off. So every time you restart it, you're gonna have to restart this if you don't want that on. So it's one of the things that Honda does that I'm not a big fan of. I'd like to be able to turn it off until I decide to turn it back on, right? Other than that, you've got cup holders right here. And then if I slide down here a little bit, you've got a nice deep well as far as going with what you can do here. And I love that it has a nice storage cover here with a nice kind of graphite finish to it. So it's just kind of a nice feel and look to it, right? So it kind of goes with the overall theme of the car. All right, guys, so let's talk about this car and kind of where it compares with other cars. So this specific vehicle is right under that 38 mark. I believe it's 37,730, but I'll throw it up on the screen here. And we'll actually do a comparison of kind of what it compares to, let's say, a Toyota, and maybe we'll throw in one third one just to keep things interesting, right? Now, when it comes to gas mileage in this car, you're gonna get 20 in the city, and you're gonna get 25 on the highway. Now, if you're getting that all-wheel drive version, you're gonna pay an extra 2 grand, and you're gonna lose a mile off each end, right? So now you're going down to 19 and 24. So just something to be aware of. But in doing so, you are taking that 7.5 inch as far as your ground clearance up to 8.1 inches. So if you do plan to take this off-road a little bit more, know that in that all-wheel drive model, you are gonna get a little bit more ground clearance out of the car. Now, as far as the cargo and storage space, you've got quite a bit in this car, and I'll throw up kind of the stats to what this specific car is, and then I'll throw some stats much the same to compare a few other vehicles out there so you can get an understanding for, hey, where does this kind of live? If I'm comparing this to other vehicles, what does it kind of stack up against, right? So that way you have a general understanding of that. Overall, as far as this vehicle goes, it offers a lot of great safety features, so you're gonna be safe in this car. It's Honda, so it's reliable and safe, right? You've got the Apple CarPlay, you've got Android Auto, you've got some of the, blind spot monitoring, you got the backup camera with cross-traffic monitoring. So I feel like you've got a lot of good tech in this car to take advantage of while still being able to take it off-road, which is kind of a nice compatible mix that I like as far as a blend goes. Other than that, I think this car really fits for the person who wants something the size of a Pilot but doesn't necessarily need that third row because they find that they're just not gonna use it. In this car, I'd have more cargo space. Maybe I wanna let my dog roam back there and just throw a blanket down. I think typically you're gonna find someone who doesn't have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 kids is probably gonna look at something maybe more like this than looking at that Pilot. And plus there's just the overall marketing that they're gonna sell it as a little bit more of a rugged car, right? So you have that to take advantage of. Other than that, I would recommend this car. I think it's a nice car. Maybe you would want that third row. I would suggest moving to the Pilot. Now, if you're looking at something with the third row, I would really suggest you go to the Odyssey because it has a larger third row, which is, I want to say, by like 7 inches. It's got a good amount of more space in that third row. So know that if you're looking for something with a third row, but that's not really where this car falls, right? So other than that, I just want to say, great car. I like the tech. I like that they've enlarged the screen 1 extra inch this year. Gas mileage is pretty good as far as the 3.5 liter V6 hitting you 280 horsepower. And then I love that it has all the safety features that the car could offer, along with 6 airbags, 2 front, 2 side, and 2 full curtain with the rollover sensors, right? So that's kind of the quick and dirty rundown to the whole car. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if I missed anything. If you want me to go over anything special, please do reach out. Feel free to send a comment. Do me a couple favors though. 1, hit the like button. 2, hit the subscribe button. Do it. You know you need to. And other than that, later, guys.